Welcome everyone to the Sunday chapel service here at Caron. We are welcoming our YouTube audience out there. We have thousands of subscribers. If you want to go back, watch the sermon or catch any of the sermons or anything that Caron Treatment Center is doing, just go to our YouTube channel. We also want to welcome the entire live streaming audience that is out there across campus. Welcome to the only treatment center, I think, in the world that offers a team of spiritual care people to be with you and to really try and communicate to you that you're sacred, you're divine, and that addiction and disease is just playing out in a way and a manner that strangely makes sense. And so today we're going to talk about this way of making sense of it, because I spoke to many of you this week in the counseling sessions, and to me, it's just amazing the struggle it feels like for many of you and for myself in addiction were to try and get at the questions of, well, why me? Why me? Why do I have to deal with this? And this works for families as well. Why me? Why do I have to deal with this? And this works for children. Why me? Why do I have to deal with this? I've done nothing wrong. I'm blameless here. I didn't ask to be born into a world where all of this is in me and around me, and how am I going to sort this out? And so today's message, what I want you to get out of this is that your higher power cares for you so very much, more than maybe you can ever imagine, that all this pain and suffering that you are feeling in your life can actually now offer you radical gifts that you could not receive any other way. These gifts are truth, wisdom, grace, and love. And I'm going to argue that really you're not able to receive truth and wisdom and grace and love unless we find ourselves in this situation. So I'm going to use a book of the Bible that a lot of people may know about. It's the book of Job. Job's not necessarily the first book a lot of people turn to when reading the Bible, because all these terrible things happen to Job. Like, if you read the story of Job, which is really interesting, Job is one of the few books of the Bible where we don't know who wrote it. We aren't sure. We don't really know where it takes place. Some of the details are very sketchy. We do know that it is some of the most beautiful poetry in the Bible. Why would a story about pain and suffering have the most beautiful writing within it? That's kind of an interesting fact. And at the end of the day, Job finds himself in a situation that he really can't believe. How did I get here? Why me? Job is considered to be blameless, and all of a sudden, his family is taken away from him. He did nothing wrong. All of his land, all of his houses, everything Job has, all of his animals, stripped away in one day. He loses everything. And I would say, talking to you this week, collectively, we are Job. If you take into account everything that's happened to us, we've lost everything. And the story of Job then says, why? Why is this? That's not fair. What kind of loving God is going to allow such pain and such suffering? And the funny thing is, in the book of Job, that question's never really answered. Why is that? But it does answer that if we are going to be born into a world with such pain and suffering, where we have no choice, that we then at that point are given an opportunity to make sense of it. So first off, we've got this idea of, what's called constancy. Constancy is this ability of someone or something to always be there for you. So steadfastness, truthfulness, dedication. Constancy is what that means. And how many times have we been told in our addiction that we're not constant, we're not dependable, we're actually not reliable? And I would argue that you are the most reliable, and you are the most dependent, and you're the most loyal, steadfast, trustworthy crowd that I know. But it's what you point to that then is the problem. If you're pointing to alcohol and drugs, the unfortunate thing is it's an unsustainable type of coping mechanism. And so when you point to something that's not constant, that's what you receive. When you point to a higher power who is constant, you do then get to receive the goodness and the kindness and the compassion that comes from that. So it's your directionality that matters. This is step number one. We admitted we were powerless over alcohol. You guys in here are the most powerful over alcohol and drugs that exist on the planet. You've proven that. You've showed it. You gave it your all. It's not everybody in the world that wants to do this kind of activity. It's when it hits our system that we feel different. So many of you told me that you feel normal. That's where you feel normal. And so this is where we get the first topic, truth. Truth is then spoken. In the book of Job, Job actually is not being inflicted this pain and suffering by God. In the book of Job, there's this thing called the Satan, which looks like Satan. And the Satan in Hebrew actually means the prosecutor, the accuser, the one who does the accusing in your life. And this accuser goes to God and says, let me get Job. I bet Job thinks if he does everything right, that's why he worships you. That's the only reason he's there, is because you give him everything. Job's been given everything. Let me have him. And God says, okay. So how is that playing out in your life? Well, let's look now from a scientific standpoint. You were born into a generational genetic setup where already you were predispositioned to have, as we now know, a very high likelihood of struggling with all sorts of mental and physical and chemical dependency type issues. You didn't ask for that. At least I don't think so. When you were in the womb, I really hope I come out to a dysfunctional family. This is going to be great. Give me a really messed up family, please. No. I mean, I don't think you did. I didn't. I don't remember necessarily. It's not something we want, right? We didn't ask for this. You're blameless. At the point of birth, you're blameless. You know, Father Bill, when he started this, I don't know if you know he had the biggest heart for the youth. Father Bill, when he was 18 months old, he said he was told that his father killed his mom and remarried an abusive wife who abused, along with his dad, Father Bill. So at the age of 3, Father Bill has to go to court. And the judge says, who did this to you? He shows him his body, all of this black and blue and these wounds. And he points in the crowd and he says, she did. My mommy, who was his stepmom. And she stands up and yells and condemns him and curses and says, I'm going to kill you. This is the story of the person who then became the founder of a chapel service that cares so much about children and about healing. He would say, you're sick and need healing. You're not a criminal and need incarceration. Two sickies don't make a wellie. This is Father Bill. So there's truth. How can Father Bill get such truth in his pain and in his suffering to where he then becomes the advocate that actually does communicate this healing spirit within you, regardless of your faith, regardless of your journey? So you didn't ask for this. He didn't ask for that. It's what do you do with it? So the second piece is wisdom. How do we get wisdom? And wisdom, we've now learned, is a lot to do when it comes to where do you turn when these things happen. So this is where the constancy comes in. Job, in his case in the story, he turns to God and says, I don't know what's happening here, but I don't understand it. And he has these friends that come in through the story. I don't know, you may have really great friends like this that say, man, you're screwed up. These are not the friends you really want to surround yourself with. Or what did you do? What did you do, Job, to make this happen to you? Dude, you're doing it. Can you not see you're doing this to yourself? Like, this sounds like the war on drugs. Just say no. Who in the world can say no to something so generationally, genetically within them that there's no other option? And that's what we learn from trauma theory now. Gabor Mate, who is really the leader when it comes to addiction and trauma, he says that alcohol and drugs are not the problem. Alcohol and drugs are the solution to the problem. They're a solution because you feel normal. Like it makes total sense. And now they're saying in trauma theory, you know what the most traumatic moment of your life is? Birth. How messed up is that? That means no matter what you do in life, if you're thinking, I should have got it right, I messed that up, you know what? You were born into trauma. In fact, now there's doing all these studies that are showing in the womb just how traumatic it is based on your mother and based on what's happening around you and based on the genetics within you. You are born into trauma. And when Job has everything taken away from him, he is in shock. He is in complete shock, and he has a trauma response. So your life becomes nothing more than a pattern of trauma response. And as you're dealing with the genetics that we talked about, which is true, and you didn't ask for it, and then the trauma, what are you to do when these things occur? Of course, you're looking for a way out, and you're not understanding, why is this happening to me? But it already happened. It happened at birth. And all we're trying to do is manage this traumatic event for the rest of our life. Why is birth so traumatic? From a spirituality standpoint, we would say it was when you were separated from the Creator. You left home, in a way, at birth to enter a new world. And the rest of our life is spent going home to try and figure out, where is it safe? Where am I not afraid anymore? Job's story is your story. Everyone's story matches up. Now, you can truly be blameless. And that's the third piece of this. And that's grace. How many of you in here, I can't tell you how many have told me the guilt and the shame that you feel for the way that this life has played out. you have this intense feeling of, I messed up. I didn't get it right. Could have done better. Should have done better. You know what that voice is in the book of Job? That's the Satan. That's the one who persecutes. That's the one who's telling you that you're not good enough and that it's your fault. It's your mind. And what they're now saying in trauma theory is that your mind actually tries to make sense of trauma and it goes into survival mode. And survival mode then does certain things to your mind that there's nothing else that you have any choice over except to survive. So you're living your life in survival mode the entire time, which is what Job did. Just trying to get by every day and trying to cope. So you're not doing anything wrong. You genetically came into this world with a predisposition for alcohol and drugs from all sorts of generational trauma. You were born into trauma immediately, and your mind is telling you that you're not good. It's actually making a statement about your identity. And that's not true. That is just flat out wrong. All you have done is the best you possibly could in the midst of all of these factors that have been working against you. So you can carry no guilt and no shame. You don't have to like some of the things you've done. And it doesn't mean that there's not a responsibility at the end of the day. But did you have a choice? Did you really have a choice? The answer is most of the time, no. Until you start to come to terms with a lot of this and understand that these are radical gifts that are now given to you. You now have a truth about yourself. You now have wisdom about how you entered the world and how you've been operating on survival trauma mode, and you now have grace. Because at the end of the day, there's only one thing that will matter, and this is love. How do we feel love? How do we sense love? How do we know we're loved? In the book of Job, at the end of the story, it almost kind of feels like, hey, is that really fair? Job gets restored. He has all these conversations with his friends that don't help. He's not very happy with God. And God comes in and says, listen, I am the I am. I am the one. That's all you need to know. There is nothing else. Does Jesus say, you will suffer in this world? Take heart. I have overcome the world. For some reason, it's the same guy who on the cross says, my God, why have you forsaken me? Why? In love, truth and wisdom and grace begin to be the gifts that you get to hold on to. And that's where we learn that it is only in love that we find the answers to anything in life. And that includes loving yourself. And I would argue it starts there, because if you can't come to terms with why this has happened and who you are and that you've done the best you can, it becomes very hard to hold others with compassion and with love and with kindness and with gentleness. So it starts with you. And this journey is about coming home. This was a season in life. And for some, it's a shorter season, hopefully. For some of us, it's a longer season. But it is not time lost. You haven't lost a second. Because in that, you're receiving radical gifts of truth and wisdom and grace and love. The receiving of the gifts is where it comes. And at the end of the story, Job doesn't get back his children that he lost. He gets new children. and more. He doesn't get back the animals he lost. He gets more animals and more. He doesn't get back the things he had. He gets new things that are much more abundant. So Job still has grief. And that's what I want you to always know. Grief will be there. It is something that we need to at least process. But God gives you something new and something better. I had a good time some of the time drinking. It's just true. I wouldn't have done it otherwise. In recovery, I lose that kind of a good time for a good time like this. I mean, I woke up this morning and I was like, this is a dream come true of a dream I never had. That's recovery. That's the essence of what you get. It's a gift. I'm totally being given a gift to be here with you. You're being a gift to now restore relationships and reconcile the things lost. They don't come back exactly the same. They come back different, and they come back better. It is a rescue mission that your higher power seems to want, in the essence that transformation is at the heart of where this game gets played. And at the end of the day, was God not suffering with you? I mean, according to Scripture, you're sacred. You have the Holy Spirit in you. If your mind is telling you certain things, is not God suffering at the same time? My God, why have you forsaken me? The answer to the why almost becomes a question not asked. The answer comes back in the form of gifts that you receive. It's a revelation. The 12 steps are a revelation. I would argue you don't do the 12 steps. The 12 steps do you. It's a revelation. It's not get it right. It's actually just be. And so for those that think that they missed all this time, that if you'd have just gotten it right, it wouldn't be here, it's actually the opposite. In Job's case, and in your case, and in all of our case. Even if you'd have done it the way that you thought and your expectations were right, that's what they call prosperity gospel. I get it right and good things happen to me. That's not life. That's just not the way it works. You were born into trauma. You were born into a generational setup you had nothing, no say about, just like Father Bill, just like Job, just like all of humanity. And the truth of the day is, as you get this wisdom within your life that understands that grace is offered to you at any moment in time, you are blameless. Unconditional love means I love you with no conditions. That's what true love is about. That's what Job feels at the end of the day. And that's what you get to receive here on this day. The goal, I believe, of the entire biblical narrative is to set you free. To set you free from your mind, to set you free from this persecutor, this one who keeps accusing you and telling you that you're the one that's not doing things right, and this one that wants to rob you of the gifts that are right there before you. So today, I just want you to receive these gifts. Receive and trust in the fact that you are loved. Be wise to the fact that you've done the best you can. Accept the grace that your higher power offers to you, and embody and be the love for yourself and for one another. It can start today. The new season of life can begin right now. And I'm offering it to you at this very moment. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Ghost. Amen.